Hey, folks, joining me now, want to bring in RIA advisor, CIO Lance Roberts. Lance, I got to bring in with the broad market. And a recent note, you mentioned that there was a retest of the S&P 500, right, the 200-day moving average. We've got that up here on the screen. I'm going to ask you, do we retest it a little bit more? Do we keep bumping up and down? Because here's the retest you talked about, we held here. As long as we're doing this, you're pretty happy, you're pretty excited, aren't you?
Absolutely. And look, and really, the market hasn't done much since May the 12th. We had this huge rally off the lows. And then really since May the 12th, the market's kind of just gone sideways. That's good. We want that. We want a consolidation, work off some of those overbought conditions. Last week when you and I talked, we talked about buying the dip, right? Waiting for that opportunity. Well, corrections come in two manners. Either the market just trades sideways and works off some of those kind of exuberant conditions, or you get a pullback in price. Fortunately, right now, we're seeing that consolidation. So over the next week or two, we're going to get a good entry point to add to exposure here as we head into July. June tends to be a weak month because we lose stock buybacks. So just be a little cautious here. We might have a little bit of just more sideways work this month. If
the 200 doesn't hold, then you'd be looking maybe at the 50-day?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And that's probably the maximum drawdown you're going to get at this point. I really don't expect to retest the 50. It's certainly possible. I kind of expect the market to trade sideways here, and that 50-day moving average crosses back above the 200 sometime in the month of June.
Lance, I'm a huge champion of the retail investor. They are killing it right now. But I want to show this chart to everyone. This is 9:30 in the morning all the way to the close. And what's happening here is they're saying that retail options buying, you can almost time it now. You can see when it happens, right? 10 o'clock, 10:15, 10:30, these big spikes. And at some point, this predictability in my mind can start to backfire on investors. Is there something you would say to folks, listen, you're doing extraordinarily well to make any sort of adjustments?
Well, remember when we were doing the whole GameStop trade back in 2020, it was the retail investor has, Wall Street by the tail. Wall Street always wins this game eventually. And when something becomes very ingrained into the market, as you're just showing here with options trading, Wall Street figures out how to take that game away, right? They begin to hedge against it. They arbitrage it out of the market, et cetera. So if you're a retail investor and you're taking a lot of risk in options, and options are a binary bet, you either make money or lose everything. So, just be aware of the risk you're taking and just understand at some point that's going to reverse. And, what is expected to occur every time doesn't. And that's where losses, really mount up. We saw that a lot in 2022. Retail investors really took a beating, much more than the overall market, because they took on too much speculative risk.
Let's talk about how to do this, right? Because I saw your note. You've been adding to or scaling in, the names we know: Palantir, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, GE Vernova. I want to ask you about your technique. When you start to scale in, it's a stock you already own, you want to own more, and let's say it's starting to run away from you. I know a lot of investors wait for the pullback. That doesn't necessarily always come.
Well, again, the problem is that investors always looking for a big pullback, right? They're expecting it to come down 20% or whatever to some previous level, and they're going to buy it really cheap. Markets don't work that way, particularly when you're in a strongly trending, stock like an NVIDIA or a Palantir. So what you're looking for are periods where either the stock just kind of trades sideways a bit and just kind of cools off, or you get a minor pullback to some level of previous support. So what we're looking for here, look, we've owned these positions for a long time. We bought more on April the 7th. We trimmed them a little bit on the big rally and because they got really overbought. Now we're just looking for any type of consolidation here. We're going to rebuild those positions, bring them back up to target. We're really excited about the future of AI. There is for every $1 billion worth of infrastructure, you get $3 billion worth of economic growth. And President Trump has already got $1.8 trillion worth of commitments for infrastructure in AI.
Right.
This is going to be huge for companies like Amazon, Palantir, BlackRock, GE Vernova. These are great opportunities.
I've got 20 seconds, and I've got a couple names that you're on your reentry list or your entry list. Oklo, just full disclosure, I actually had my subscribers take profits on that today, so I'll be with you looking on a dip. But real quick, BlackRock, what's going on there? I mean, it seems like it's down enough. If you had the conviction, you start buying now.
Yeah, and I think that's a good entry point on BlackRock. Infrastructure is really hard to kind of pick the winners and losers. BlackRock is heavily investing in infrastructure. So for investors, an easy way to get exposure to infrastructure build out is through owning something like BlackRock, who are doing a lot of private equity investments in that space. But, Caterpillar, Deere, these are the companies that will also be involved in the whole infrastructure build out. But we do like BlackRock for the financial space in your portfolio. And yeah, you could probably start building a position in it right now.
All right. My man, you passed the test. The S&P went green as you were talking. Talk to you again real soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.